It's interesting. Humans are the only creature on the planet that have a clear and conscious understanding of what mortality is. But yet, we go through most of our life caring what other people think. You would think that since we know we're not going to be remembered in 200 years, that we would be more reckless and confident. But yet, as of 2025, anxiety is higher than ever. By the end of this video, I'm going to teach you how to overcome anxiety and what works for me. By human nature, we should always strive to become more confident because there are so many benefits in it and you'll be able to take on more problems later on in life. Now, everyone has anxiety, but recently I've heard far too many people say out loud that they have anxiety. They'll say like, I have anxiety, and that gives them like a kind of excuse not to do something. And here's the thing, when you're 16 years old, you'll get sympathy for saying that from like teachers and stuff, but as you start becoming an adult and entering the real world, you'll realize not many people care for that kind of stuff. They won't have nearly as much sympathy. So I want to make this video to try to change people's way of thinking. So the people you call cringe are happy, and then there's you that's scared to express themselves in case of judgment. How you judge cringy people is how you think you'll get judged by others. Carl Jung called it projection. And this is going to be really hard for your ego to hear, but you secretly envy people's confidence and expressiveness. So when you were a child, you mostly saw the goodness in others. For me at least, when I went to school, I used to think, he's got a cool haircut, she's smart, he's good at basketball. And a lot of children tend to see the goodness in others, which is why their anxiety is so low. So most people develop anxiety when they become a teenager because they start going through puberty and get more self-awareness and consciousness. And so they start to overanalyze every outcome, which is mostly negative, in a social situation. So I got bullied, and then I started bullying other people. And then before I knew it, I started judging people within milliseconds of meeting them. From thinking that someone's good at basketball to thinking they're show-offs, they're posers, they're losers, they're wannabes. It was always negative no matter how I looked at it. I became a very defensive person mentally, and not even in reality. I was focusing on the absolute worst in people, no matter the situation. And this, ironically, made me worry about what others thought of me. Now, I was able to reverse this, but it took a long time. You see, you need to rewire the brain to how you were when you were a kid. Even for the people you don't like, even for the people that hurt you or you disagree with, or even disagree with politically, you have to admire something about them to reinforce the positiveness in your brain. I know that sounds very basic and black and white, but if you keep focusing on the negatives, you'll keep them buried in your brain, and Sigmund Freud called this repression. And as Carl Jung has pointed out as well, if you keep judging others, it's often projection, which is very hard to hear sometimes. So to access our repression and projection, we need to go to our subconscious, which is almost impossible to do. So I'm going to draw a quick picture real quick. So I'm going to draw a picture. Let's pretend this is an iceberg. I'm going to put a line here, and then the water waves, or the water level is going to be about there. This is your subconscious, and it makes up for 95% of your brain activity, which means only 5% of our brain is conscious. So only 5% of our brain there is conscious. So our consciousness is responsible for our thinking, and it's also responsible for like logic and pretty much critical thinking. Our subconscious makes up for so many things and we can't even access them, which is insane, but it's responsible for emotions, habits, values, and beliefs. So we have control over our rational thinking, but that means our emotions, habits, values, and beliefs are all unconscious. And something else about the subconscious is that it believes in everything. So that's why we like movies a lot, because it brings on strong emotions and all these great visuals, but it's only 5% of our consciousness that we can detect that there's actors, there's editing, there's CGI, which makes you wonder, what's going on through that other 95%? This is why it is essential that you don't compare yourself to others and that you don't listen to criticism that's personal, only constructive. So when you go on social media and you see all these kids that are young, attractive, and got Lambos and mansions, it might be real, and then your brain will automatically start comparing yourself. But even if you can detect that it's fake and that it's their dad's money or that they're renting the cars or something, there's a part of your brain that will still compare yourself to them even without you knowing it. This is why anxiety has skyrocketed ever since social media became mainstream. To reverse this, the key is to put all of your effort and time into something you're working on in your own life. Don't ever compare yourself to others. Instead, look back to where you started and where you are now. The more time you put into things, the better you'll become, which means you'll get more confidence. And yes, some people are naturally just better at things than a lot of other people, and that's just life. There's no point complaining about it. It's just how it is. Never be down on yourself though, because we're all different, and even the lines, our DNA, our lines on our fingers are different from everyone else in the world. We're all unique. The only reason humans have anxiety is because since the dawn of civilization, we've overestimated every single threat. Anxiety was a defense mechanism, but it's a very primitive way of thinking, and it doesn't help too much in the modern world because we're not running from a lot of danger and stuff. The danger now is social situations and what people think of us. But all anxiety is in the modern world is the fear of the unknown. The problem with it is that it doesn't allow us to be confident. So to get out of this primitive thinking, you need to get out your comfort zone. And the more things you do that you didn't want to do, you'll start realizing that you suffered more in your own mind than you did in reality. Once you overcome something, you realize it's not as bad as you thought it was. Now, I'm a dance teacher, and one of my #1 rules in class is that my students can't say the words, "I can't." The reason being is not only does your subconscious believe in it, but then your brain will start to go looking for evidence and other times in your life to support your claim. So if you say you suck at something, your brain then goes through memories of other times that you said you sucked. And then over time, this builds up, which is not good at all. This is why Bruce Lee said, never say something bad about yourself, even as a joke, because there's a part of your brain that believes in it. So you need to give yourself more credit, and you also need to start saying more positive affirmations. So when you were a baby and you tried walking for the first time, your parents are clapping, they're cheering you on, they're saying, come on, you can do it. And even if you rode a bike for the first time, they're doing the same thing. They're clapping, they're cheering you on. And as we start getting older, especially in our teenage years, we stop hearing these positive affirmations because we're used to other people saying them to us. As you get older, it's up to you and only you to start reassuring yourself. So if you don't have a talent or skill, that's fine. Either start looking or start trying to find something that you've always wanted to do and give it a chance. Because I'll tell you something, the more you get older, the more you'll start seeing people quit. They'll stop trying new things because they're afraid of what everyone thinks about them. If you notice children, they're obsessed with learning new activities, new hobbies, learning new sports as well. But as adults, they get so afraid of what everyone else is going to think about them, especially when they try something new. So much so that they end up going throughout their whole life without doing the things that they've always wanted to do. There are many people right now in nursing homes that are 80 years old, they could be in rocking chairs, and they have the biggest regrets of not doing the things that they've always wanted to do in fear of judgment. And they don't get no second chance. Their life is over. That's it. Done. In school, I was jealous of a few people. They were born with so much talent and they were born and destined to be football players. But as I got older and older, more and more of them started quitting over time. They gave up and they quit because they cared about what everyone else thought. I saw this happen synchronously in real time. As I got older, more and more people quit. There's a quote as well, I think it's by Benjamin Franklin. He says, most people die at 25 but aren't buried until they're 80, which is, backs up my claim. And here's the thing about humans, they get so down on themselves and they start giving up. If you think about a lion, for example, when it goes looking for food, it doesn't give up because it's hungry. It won't think it's stupid, is what I'm trying to say. And it'll keep looking and it'll keep looking until it eventually finds food. When a human does something, we get so down, I'm saying it like I'm an alien. We get so down on when a human can't do something, we get so down on ourselves that we start questioning everything and we think everything we're doing is wrong. But something such as a mammal that just goes looking for food, it never thinks it's stupid. This is why I say that it's essential that you have positive affirmations and that you constantly reassure yourself. If you do this, you'll have a constant edge on life over everyone else in the world because most people are too busy putting themselves down. Now, many people are probably thinking that I'm not doing that. I'm not saying positive things about myself because that is cringe. And I used to have that way of thinking, but why is it not cringe to say negative things about yourself? Being negative now is so accepted. It's almost like an aesthetic to have as well, which is insane. Anxiety is almost like cool to have. And I'm going to say something really blunt. I think a lot of people say they have anxiety as an excuse and coping mechanism not to do something. But in the end, they're only hurting themselves. Now, I'm not saying to go around through life boasting about how you're good at everything or whatever, but if you dress good and you look in the mirror, tell yourself in your mind that you look good. If you studied longer than usual, Tell yourself, well done for doing that. If you went to the gym and you really, really didn't want to go, be proud of yourself when you did it. Just little things like that. It doesn't have to be crazy. By doing this, you'll start rewiring your brain and the negative thought patterns. Also, don't say my anxiety. When you say my anxiety, when you put the my there, you're constantly reassuring yourself and you're reaffirming in your brain that you have anxiety, and you want to stop giving it that much power. If you're around a lot of people or in an overwhelming situation where you're put on the spot, the first thing to do is to stop the fidgeting and then take a real deep breath, which will slow down your heart rate, and then bring yourself back into the present moment. Don't worry about the outcomes or the future of that situation. And yeah, that's pretty much my video on anxiety. So never stop learning, always try new things, and make the most of this life. I just realized something. Everyone has anxiety, and if everyone has it, that means they're too busy worrying about what everyone else thinks about them.